Hello, I am Andrew Battaglia and I am a student at American Military University currently taking College 100. For my final project, I'll be talking about brewing as an occupation. Brewing not many people really consider. Sure, we all love to drink beer, but I'm willing to bet that most people hardly ever think about the process it takes to make their own favorite beer. I chose this topic because it's a hobby that I like to do when I have a lot of spare time. To me, making my own beer can be a rewarding challenge. I have often wondered what steps I might take if I ever decided to make beer making a career. Going from brewing at home and eventually working in the brewing industry can be very simple or it can be very complicated. The image you see on the right is an all-grain pale ale that I made during the summer. For this class, I've decided to look into brewing as a potential career path. My current degree plan does not reflect this in any shape or form, however. I am still on active duty in the military, and I don't plan on getting out until the year 2028 when I can retire. So I still have a few years to plan what I will do in the future. On the right, my pale ale that I showed in the last slide during its primary fermentation stage. The problem is that brewing is a hardly understood process. Most people consuming beer probably have never considered what goes into the process of making their beer. So let me pose a question to you. Have you ever considered what the world would be like if beer was never invented? It's likely that that thought has never crossed anyone's mind. Now let me ask you this. If someone were to have invented beer today, would any sane business person be convinced to invest into such a concept as beer making? The answer, of course, is no. The process of brewing beer is a complex, somewhat convoluted, and at times a mysterious endeavor that has evolved from what probably was a prehistoric accident. Beginners start by buying brewing kits and progressing from there. But there are other methods. I started brewing using a book that I bought from a local brewing store in San Antonio, Texas. Eventually, after making a few batches of your own brew, you develop your own brew day practices and procedures. I'll cover those in the next slide. The image above from brewersfriend.com is meant to give you an idea of where being a home brewer can take you. It isn't meant to be a step-by-step from apprentice to master, but it can give you an idea of where it will take you. I've skipped multiple steps, and in some cases haven't even considered some of the steps to be meant for me. I have included the full image because they requested the full image be displayed on the webpage. So click on the link if you want to view it in its entirety and clearly. Brew day procedures. On a brewing day, the procedures that I'm about to explain are in their most basic form. If you're a beginner, referring to your brewing instructions, following these instructions are critical. If you're advancing in your skill and are using your own recipe, chances are you probably are going based off of a kit that you used in the past, instructions you have written down, or are going by your gut. First, you'll sanitize your equipment, basically anything that's going to touch your brew. Then you bring the water to a steeping temperature for the grains. After you got your grains steeped into the water, it is now called a wort. After that, you will follow your brewing schedule included in your kit, bringing the wort back up to boiling. This is when you'll add your hops. Believe it or not, these little small green things will dictate the bitterness, flavor, and aroma of your beer. After this, you will let your wort cool down, put the wort into your fermentation chamber, add the yeast, and let it ferment. When the wort is done fermenting, it is now called beer and ready for bottling and carbonation. There are many beer styles to choose from the light American lager to the classic roast beer. The chart on the right is a list of different styles that are available with their matching color. The reigning champion on the chart on the left is obviously Bud Light. It is sold at almost every sports venue and can be found in nearly every bar across the country. Beer is dispensed in many ways, such as cans, bottles, and kegs. There is no conclusive decision in any part of my research that has decided which of those are the best However, if it's left to personal opinion, I would have to choose the bottle. Brewery of any size, even my humble one here at home, you need capital. Ken Grossman, the founder of Sierra Nevada Brewing Company, had the same issue. He started off in high school brewing in his closet. As he grew up, he opened up a home brewing supply store with a friend of his. Sales were meager in the beginning, so I juggled a few different jobs so that we had income coming in, said Ken Grossman in his 2013 novel, Beyond the Pale. Sales eventually did begin to climb, as he was able to expand his business and at the same time growing in his own brewing skill. After a trip to the new Abalone Brewery in Sonoma, California, owned by Jack McAuliffe, Ken and his friend Paul Camusi began to consider opening their own brewery. After seeing his clever approach to fabricating his own equipment and the operation's simplistic level of technology, we realized that it was more feasible to go from home brewing to production brewing with limited financial industry knowledge, said Ken Grossman in his 2013 novel Beyond the Pale. He sold his homebrew shop, which was not a very viable market back in the 1970s. He bought his former employer's bike shop and ran that business while working there and at 3 other bike shops. As the market began to turn towards import beers, they started to build a business plan and did research on what they needed to stand up their own brewery. To spare the class on further details, they succeeded. The Sierra Nevada Brewing Company was born and is still around today. Cheers. Man, that one was a mouthful. Now grab a beer if you're of age and watch this documentary done by the History Channel. If the video does not work, then click the link below. Currently in the United States of America, there are dozens of laws regarding the regulation of alcohol and its distribution. For example, there is a 3-tier system that is in place. In an article regarding this system, Brian Anault describes this process. The 3-tier system operates by dividing breweries, distributors, and retailers into different tiers. It is enforced by requiring separate licenses at each level. To summarize this, no one business can own the other. So a brewery cannot own any share in the distributors or the retailers. It's more like the checks and balances of the United States government. No one has more control over the other. Probably thinking, how much would I make if I worked in a brewery? Well, it turns out if you just start as just a normal brewer in the factory, you're not going to make much. And in the end, either way, even as a brewmaster, however, you'd still make more than what I make now as an active duty member in the military. These are my references. And enjoy this music by Psycho Stick. I like beer because it is good. I drink beer because I should. If there was a song to sing, I sing it and hear you bring. I drink beer when I am sad, because the beer it makes me glad. Now there's nothing left to sing, so let's go drink beer. Hello again, and I would like to thank everybody who sat through my presentation all the way to the question slide. Not many people actually sit to even past the reference slide. So I would like to thank you once again and answer a few questions that was posed to me at the beginning of the class that I never actually got to answer. One of the questions was, how did I start brewing at home? Well, that started back in 2010 when a neighbor of mine gave me a bottle of homemade Italian white wine. It was really delicious and it didn't last very long, as you can imagine. And then a couple years later, my friend and my brother made a batch of Applejack cider, and that was pretty good. And my brother eventually sent me a bottle of that when I went to Texas. So back in 2013, fast forward to 2013 now, I'm at Texas and I'm bored out of my mind. I decided to go to the home brewing store. And at the home brewing store, I pick up this wonderful book called The Complete Mead Maker. It's an amazing book. It's actually how I made my first batch of mead. So that's how I learned how to brew, but that's not the end of the story. As you saw in some of the pictures, I displayed some of the stuff that I've made, including this label. There we go. And it would normally go onto the bottle and one onto the neck. This bottle right here is actually an all-grain ale. I've discontinued that product because I made a mistake during the process. It explodes every time I open it. So it's an overcarbonation issue or a not completed fermentation issue. I haven't figured out which yet, and I don't have the funding yet to test my theory, as you would. So I'm going to give you a little quick tour around my office, a little quick one, not too much because it's also my second bedroom and privacy, you know. So directly behind me, you'll see the red thing that's right. I don't know if the pen will do it. Maybe it will. Nope. So that red thing right there behind the Harry Potter chest, that is actually a bottle capper and corker. Use that to cap bottles and cork wine bottles. And directly right here is a 5-gallon glass carboy. You used to be able to find those everywhere where there used to be water dispensers. As you can imagine, we've now gone from water dispensers that are plastic to now or glass to now plastic. So you won't see many of those unless you go to a home brewing store. And we'll look to my left here. My left, your right. So over there are 2 batches of wine that I started. I don't just do beer, I do wine. Beer is a little more complex and more touchy. I can actually leave wine and let it sit for 6 months. These batches here have actually been sitting since, let me look at the cap real quick, since November. So they're nowhere near ready yet. So if you ever decide to want to get into home brewing, message me, get my contact info, and I can walk you through some of the steps. Some of this you'll have to learn on your own. Some of this I can guide you, or you can take a brewing class at your local community college. There are actually classes for it. I just haven't gotten anywhere near where I can actually take one. So thank you once again for sitting through this. I hope my voice wasn't that boring for you. And cheers. By the way, this isn't real beer. This is actually ginger beer. You have a wonderful day. Wait, before you go, please give my video a like and subscribe and enjoy the other video that's on my YouTube channel. Eventually I will be getting around to posting more. I just don't have the land, time, or money to go out and do what I used to do. So enjoy. Last one, I promise. May the force be with you.